All right. Morning, everyone. Morning, everyone. Let me check all the platforms as usual. Check all the platforms as usual. See what we're doing today. You see what we about. You see it. All right. First things first. Let's make sure we're all good. LinkedIn fam. What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? This beautiful Wednesday morning. A great one, the greatest Wednesday because it's the current Wednesday. First things first, let's make sure we're all good. All right, LinkedIn, we're good to go. Let me go check Facebook real quick. Actually, before I go over to, let me make sure I repost this. It's reposted on LinkedIn. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. Shit, now. Facebook, we're ready to roll. Facebook, we're ready to roll. You see the topic today. I just read a post that was like, come on, man. This is why I tell people all the time to more so be producers and not consumers of social media, because you can see something that'll just be like, what are you talking about, dude? Anyway. Lately, I've learned some car accidents. All right. Welcome back. Another episode tackling. All right, we're all good. We're all good in the platforms. Tackling, as you can see, tackling another episode of what I call tackling turnover with teamwork. Welcome, everyone. We have an incredible show for you lined up today. Per usual, first things first, let me introduce myself to any newcomers, anybody that be new to my world. Name is Aswand Crookshank. I am your one and only Move Swiftly speaker, former Division I college football player, and current 5-time published author and educator. And what I do, what I've created, the business, everything I'm all about is taking the teamwork lessons from the football field and aligning them with businesses so they have a staff that's moving in a cohesive unit, and they have a staff that's incredibly hungry, and they know their roles, and they're constantly trying to get better and make the organization better within their particular roles. So all that being said, before we get into today's topic, let me get through some announcements. First things first, West Palm Beach, Florida. Anybody living in the West Palm Beach, Florida area, if you are interested in free boxing lessons, I put those on every 2 weeks out here in the Palm Beach area. Just shoot me a message if you're interested in hearing more, or hit that QR code that you see on the screen. All right. Next thing. Business owners, if you have not yet, go to Free Guide. Do this. You can do this immediately. You can do this right now as you're listening to me. All right. It is freeguide.makeyourmove.com. You can go put your information in. You'll immediately get a free guide sent. What I've done is I've created 10 easy to follow steps in which you use them right now in your business, and you will start to see actionable things in which is going to make your organization a whole lot more cohesive, and the people that you're working with going to make it so they understand what their roles are just a little bit clearer. All right. That's freeguide.makeyourmove.com. Finally, we are steadily approaching 2025, folks. The thriving in 2025. That's what I call this year's theme. All right. And at that point, when we really get into the swing of the new year and everything kind of gets settled down, I know a lot of times during this time of year, a lot of people are all over the place, but as things start to get settled in the new year, I will be really focusing all my content, a lot of the work I do, it'll be focused on the members of my Patreon community. So make sure you sign up for that. We have something for everybody at every level, regardless of where you are financially. There's something for you. We have preseason, we have regular season, we have postseason. So make sure you tap in with me on the Patreon link and become a member as soon as possible. It's patreon.com/Aswand44. All right, so here we go with today's topic. All right, so because it's Wednesday, I'm going to start off with something that I've created. It's called Wintrepreneur Wednesday. All right, you heard me correctly. I said Wintrepreneur Wednesday. If you're listening to that and you're like, man, I've yet to hear that phrase, it's because you have not been tuned into my content for long enough. All right. Every Wednesday for the past couple months at this point, I've come on and I've explained to you every Wednesday, I've come on and explained to you what a wintrepreneur is. Now, we all know what an entrepreneur is. An entrepreneur is a person that runs their own business. They go out, they pretty much eat what they kill, they create their own sales, they create all the structural stuff around their business. But an entrepreneur is a person who's been blessed enough, or is fortunate enough, I should say, fortunate enough to have an entrepreneurial vision, have something that they want to be doing with whatever company it is they have in their mind, and be blessed enough to have a job that's paying them every 2 weeks. And they've been able to find an alignment between their job and their business, their entrepreneurial vision. And they've been able to, obviously work those. So me being the one and only Move Swiftly speaker, being the sports guy that I am, I have to take that phrase. I got to make it my own, right? So I just added the W at the beginning and I call it wintrepreneur. So every Wednesday I give you a wintrepreneur tip, seeing that I am actually a wintrepreneur and I have tons of experience being a wintrepreneur. All right. So today's tip is, when you are a wintrepreneur, you have got to figure out how to find the positives in being excluded. Here's what I mean by that. I teach at a school. Named the Center for Creative Education, and we are in our last week with the kids here, being that it's a holiday season. And all week there has been something called a Spirit Week. Now, me personally, I have absolutely no idea what was going on, how it was being. Now, again, granted, some of it may be my fault personally, because I don't really engage with the staff members that we don't have really much to talk about outside of one or two people here. There's really not a whole lot that I and other staff members can talk about outside of the stuff that goes on in the school, which is fine, which is fair. I'm not complaining about it. But there was I believe it was like a twin day or something yesterday that I had no idea about until I actually got into the school. And I noticed a lot of the people that were here were all wearing black. And I had no idea what was going on, but apparently some memo went out. I didn't get the message. Some memo went out in which everybody needed to wear black. And I was kind of left out because I didn't know what was going on. And instead of being discouraged by that, it really didn't deter me. It didn't really bother me. And I'm explaining all that to you, not to necessarily bash my fellow coworkers, if you want to call them, but I'm telling you that because if you are in a situation where you're very passionate about the work you do, where you are, for the most part, you love the service that you're providing, you love in the work that you're ultimately able to do, the position that your job is putting you in, and you have your own entrepreneurial vision, you have your own things that you can set up, that should be the only things that motivate you. Your whole thing should not be, okay, this staff member doesn't like me, or I don't fit into this certain circle, or this person isn't messaging me about, some Spirit Week, some fun thing they're doing. All of that you should be totally fine with, as long as you get to show up every day and do the work. So that's today's wintrepreneur tip. And I know who my audience is. I know the people that regularly tune into my work. It's the people that are loving what they're doing, but they always are on the outside looking in, because whether they own the business that they are currently running, or they're a person who's working in the business and they want to eventually become a business owner, these are the pitfalls. These are going to be the barriers that you're going to have to break. All right. These are going to be the roadblocks. These are going to be the challenges that you're going to face as you continue to grow, excel, and pursue whatever it is you're trying to pursue. There's always going to be somebody there that is going to shrug you off, is not going to ask certain things, is not going to, be as enthusiastic about the work that you're enthusiastic about. And you have to be okay with that. All right, I'm telling you, you have to be okay with that. You have to be 1000% fine with somebody else not being as enthusiastic about the work that you are enthusiastic about, because that should be proving to yourself every day. What is it that I have to grow? What is it that I have to do? where is it that I have to be in order to make this plan and make this goal a success? And in many ways, if you have too many friends or too many quote unquote fake supporters, you get distracted from that goal. You start chasing vanity metrics. You start chasing things that don't align with your core principles, don't align with your bottom line, and eventually you just kind of fizzle out because you have too many distractions. In fact, and I'll close out today's wintrepreneur tip with this. I was in church this weekend. If you don't know, I've been going to church every Sunday since the summer. And Life Church, I've settled in on Life Church as my home church in Wellington, out here in Wellington. In fact, when I showed you guys the group boxing, it's because I'm a group leader at Life Church. So the free boxing lessons are coming from the fact that I'm a group leader here at Life Church. You see it right there, Life Group, right? So this past weekend, the pastor was preaching. Boy, he was preaching. And the cool thing about Pastor Groeschel is sometimes he'll let other people come in and be a pastor and preach the sermon, give the word. And the individual who he had given the word this past Sunday, he was saying that the biggest issue when it comes to joy is too often are we distracted. Too often are we distracted with what somebody else is doing, how somebody feels about us, or how somebody is liking us, or whatever we may or may not be offended by. Too often do we get distracted. We don't just see the joy in this moment. We don't just see having joy in the moment. Just be happy because it's Wednesday. Be happy because you're alive. Be happy because you're in the middle of a season and you have an opportunity. You see that beautiful sun rise one more time. Just simply be happy because you have it better. You have a good situation. But we get distracted with what's on our phone, what's on our email, what our boss is saying, right? What our coworkers may or may not like about us, all the other stuff that distractors are putting in our place, are putting in our way to distract us from what it is we want to do. So today's tip, the long and short of it, is to simply are you doing the work that you're passionate about? Are you building your business while you're doing the work that you're currently passionate about, to the point where right now you are just simply happy to be doing the work? Because if you're not happy doing the work, then you have a problem. Doesn't matter when the money comes in. All right. The money could come in. If you're not happy doing the work, then the money's not going to matter. I'm just telling you straight up. If you're not happy doing the work that you've been called to do, you can get all the money in the world and it will not matter. Be happy doing the work. Right? So that's today's wintrepreneur tip. Take that mindset, take that with you. All right. So as far as today's topic, we are debunking racism. Debunking racism. All right. And this is a huge topic, a very complex topic to tackle that yours truly has become an expert at. All right, has become someone who is one of the most, if you're not, I'll say the most, you're not going to find another more qualified person to speak on this than myself, than the one you're listening to right now. Okay, because the very name that you are looking at right there, Aswand Crookshank. All right, I was named the Arabic version of black. I'll show you guys right here. It's right here. I have it pulled up ready for you. All right, my parents, my mother and father, Neil and Deborah Crookshank, named me Aswand because the Arabic version of black, the way to say black, is Aswad. All right. So you're not going to speak to someone who has been racial. I mean, when you're talking about racism, when you're talking about experiencing racism, and I'm gonna trash this whole phrase about the black experience and all. I'm gonna trash that phrase very soon as I continue. But when you talk about what people like to throw that word around, to throw that person's just black, and black people don't do this, black people, all the stereotypes that come with black people. Again, my name means black. My name means black. And seeing a lot of the current events and seeing a lot of the nonsense that have come up over the past week, whether it was the Brandon Neely situation, whether it was the Caitlin Clark situation, whether it was even the situation that just happened this past weekend with Travis Hunter and his fiance, and some of the things that they've been going through online, it is incredibly important that we get more individuals speaking about how how much nonsense comes and we'll say not, well, yeah, we'll call it nonsense, not only nonsense, but the damaging effects that come when you start throwing around this term, the Black experience, and using this term, the Black experience, as a way of validating and giving race hustlers a bunch of ammo to continuously poison our kids. And I'll give you an example. Just yesterday, for those of you, again, some of you guys regular listeners, you guys know this about me, but if you're new around here, I teach at the current school. I usually come in a little early so I can, record these live streams. So I teach it's a group of kids from K to 5th grade, and I'm primarily around the 4th graders, and I've known these 4th graders since they were in 2nd grade. All right, so I've seen them grow, seen them develop, seen them. I'm beyond proud of these young group of kids, because when I first got here at this school, they were 2nd graders, and it's incredible to see them grow and develop as young men and young women. So yesterday there was a little situation. It's a little situation in class where the term hood came up. There was the term hood that came up and the term neighborhood that came up. And you have, I'm not allowed, probably not, shouldn't be saying this, but one of my favorite students, I'll say it, one of my favorite students, I'm going to call him one of my favorites because a lot of the other kids might feel slighted when I say that, but one of the ones that I knew from 2nd grade, someone I've been to his football games, I've met his family, great young man. Great young man, absolutely incredible. You already see it in him as a 4th grader that he's going to go on and do some major things. I won't put his name out there, but I know for a fact that if he's listening, if anyone's listening, they know, if I was to say the name, they know exactly who I'm talking about, right? So yesterday we were having a conversation in class, and the term hood and neighborhood came up, and I asked this young man, I said, hey, what's the difference between hood and neighborhood? And then he looks at me and he goes, hood is where Black people live, right? That's what the kid said to me. The kid says to me, a hood is where Black people live. Now, this is a 4th grade student saying some nonsense like that. So there's already a negative connotation amongst a kid who can do anything he wants to do in this world. And if you were to look at where he actually lives, it's actually a very substantial, a very nice neighborhood. It's around some rivers. It's actually a very decent neighborhood where he lives. So when you have this poison, this nonsense that goes on in our kids' heads, you got to really ask yourself, why is it like that? What is the system? What are the things in place? Where exactly did we get to a point where 4th grade kids who don't know anything, again, just know what's been given to them. 4th grade kids now are starting to say, oh, the hood is where Black people live. Like, where the hell does that come from? All right, so, I took me personally, because of my name and because of everything I lived through, I was lucky and I was blessed enough to, as you guys can see, as I showed you in the thumbnail, lucky enough to be raised in a 2-parent household, lucky enough to have a mother and a father in the household, and it was a very structured environment. And neither one of them, okay, this is something I can give my mother and my father a ton of credit for. All right, there's plenty of things as you grow up, you can always nitpick and say, oh, mom didn't do this for me, or dad didn't do this for me. Everybody has those. They have them. It's just part of life and part of growing. But the one thing that my mother and father never, ever allowed, whether it's myself or my sister, to believe is that we were victims. That we were victims of our skin tone. They never allowed that to creep into our mind. That all that hood, and this one's from the hood, and this one's none of that was in the household. Now, what we learned in school and what me and my sister may have picked up through watching some music videos or whatever it is on TV, okay, granted, kids gonna be kids. But when it comes to that structure in the household, they never allowed that victim mentality to start creeping up in their kids. So today, we're going to start to debunk this whole idea of racism. So I pulled up a few definitions for you. The first one, debunk. We're going to expose the falseness and hollowness of this belief. All right. So when I say debunking racism, we're debunking what we think racism is. because too often does it get exposed to us and explained to us in a way where we think it's one person who's this skin tone and that person who's another skin tone, and I'm going to make judgments and I'm going to prejudge and I'm going to say this about this person because they have an opposite skin tone than me. That's not necessarily the way it works. It's a system that's in place. It's a system that's in place that makes it so people of all colors are looking at other folks, regardless of colors, and they're prejudging them based on the skin tone that they have. That is what it is. It's a systematic thing in place that if we are aware of the system, we can now start to begin to change the system to make it so certain things move in a positive, in a more cohesive environment, a cohesive way. It is not about one person just being prejudiced towards another person because of their skin color. All right. So let's take a look at the definition of racism. All right. Me saying that now, racism: prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism by an individual, community, or institution against a person or people on the biases of their membership in a particular racial or ethnic group, typically one that is a minority or marginalized. You see my point? Individual, community, or institutional. So it's bigger than one person having this thought about another person. You get my point now? I'm going to put it up there, but make sure you guys read it. Community, institution, or against people. Okay, so it's a more of a systematic thing than it is an individual thing. And again, this is on you now. This is on how you get raised. This is on how exactly you are structuring your household, structuring the way you go about teaching your kids. That's where the belief system, that's where the belief systems are put in place. All right, it is all in the home. It's taught in the home. I'm gonna let it sit there. Like again, you know what? I might have to find another location because it's the second day in a row where this Wi-Fi has been acting very shaky here. So let me make sure I'm good on all the platforms because I don't like the fact that my Wi-Fi is. Let me see something here real quick. Again, you know what? I might have to find another location because it's the second day in a row. All right, so we're good there. All right, let me make sure we're good here. So we're good there. All right. So back to this now. As far as debunking racism, now we put it up again. Now the antagonizing. To antagonize means to act hostility or in opposition. All right. So here's what I mean when I say we gotta stop. We gotta stop with this idea that racism is between one skin tone and another skin tone. And I'll give you an example because there was a time when I was a scout. So for those of you who don't know, after college, I was a college scout. All right. I spent my first job after I graduated from Stony Brook was that of a college scout. And this was all commission work. The way it worked is you got paid based on how many kids you could sign up to our scouting services, our recruiting services, and we'd go out and we would recruit kids, and basically the parents would pay us a certain amount, and we put together a package to send off to college coaches for the actual players and all that kind of stuff, right? So I was the only one doing this in the state of Maryland. All right. The name of the company was National Scouting Report, and there was no other independent scouts for this company that were in Maryland. So I graduated from Stony Brook, which is in New York. I get certified to be a scout with NSR. Then I moved back home to Maryland, and I'm just, out there recruiting. And I'm doing this by myself. There's no other, most coaches have a staff that they can go call and they go recruit kids for a certain team. I didn't have that. I was just out there, looking at talent and then hoping that they sign up. And that was just, again, how I was able to get a foot in the door, and that's just what I was doing. So I was with them for a couple of years, about a year and a half or so, and there was finally someone else who became a scout for Maryland because I was doing it for couple months, like I said, a couple months at that point, and I was always kind of checking the website to see if they had brought in anybody else who was a scout for Maryland that I can maybe grab some lunch with, connect with, whatever it is. So they did. They happened. There was also another person. He had a basketball background, I had a football background. There was another person who eventually became a scout for Maryland. It happened to be a black guy, happened to be another black guy. And I remember there was a huge women's basketball tournament in Richmond that he was going to go scout at this tournament, right? So he got there the day before. It was the whole weekend tournament. He gets there the day before, and then I get there after. Now, normally before, when I would go scout games, I wouldn't know anyone. I did it completely in the dark. I was in the dark. I wanted to go and really develop my eye for talent and see who can play and all that kind of stuff, right? So I didn't care where I was going. I would go on, I think it was like Max Preps or something like that, one of them websites where announced all the high school games and all the high school practices, what was going on. And I just go to the games with my clipboard, practice with my clipboard, and just take notes and figure out who is who. I made no judgments whatsoever. Now, this scout that I'm referring to, I can't even remember his name, but he obviously had a little more years on him. He played, I think he coached at he did. He actually coached at a college. And the reason he took the job at NSR is because, he saw how many emails he would get from players that are looking to play in college and all that. So he left the college coaching job to become a college scout with NSR. So remember us working this tournament. We were working this basketball tournament together. And we saw this school. There was this school that was in this tournament that had it was pretty much all black girls. And there was a certain area that you could tell that they were from, right? And I'm getting ready to go, with my clipboard and, see who can play and all that. And he looks at me, he goes, "Look, they can't afford us, man." They can't afford us. Don't you waste your time. Because this was a paid service, all right? Now, this was a black guy. This is a black guy telling me, again, someone who is coach is far more experienced than me. This was his lane. All right. This was women's college, women's high school, women's college basketball was his lane. I'm more of a football guy. So I was like taking his lead in terms of who I should talk to and who I should recruit and all that. I was just taking his lead in regards to how I should go about approaching this situation. And before he even gives these girls a chance, he tells me they can't afford us. He takes 1/2 second look at them and says, "They can't afford us. Don't even waste your time." Now, here's the sad part. There's a black guy telling me this. Here's the sad part about this story. He was right. He was right. Because I remember actually being a scout and doing this on my own. And the reason it didn't work out with me at NSR is because I was willing to go recruit anybody. And I would go to certain schools. In certain areas that were predominantly black kids and black parents and black families and all that. I don't use the term black community because there's no actual such thing as a black community. So that's a word I don't use. But this was it's a group of the majority of people who were in these particular areas and in these particular schools were black. And I'd either get blown off, I'd call the parents to try to sit down with them. And the minute that they could sense that there may be a charge coming, in fact, there was one mother who didn't even let me go and sit down in the home and, at least present what it was I presented. And this is why it's a problem. Here's why it's a problem. It's a problem because I actually was doing the work. I was actually laying eyes on the kid. All right. It wasn't me just going about charging some service to somebody who can afford it. I was actually doing the job of a scout, which is to lay eyes on a kid and see if they can play and then have the conversation about what the services may be and how you can afford it, how you can pay for it, all that kind of stuff. That's the way it should be. And the majority of people that blew me off were black people. It didn't matter that I myself was black and, the whole supporting black businesses and all that. No, that didn't matter at all. The only thing that mattered was, look, he's going to charge something and I don't even want to listen to what it is he has to say because there's going to be some money attached to it. That wasn't white people doing that to Aswand. These were black people doing this to Aswand. All right. So when I say debunking racism, I want you guys to understand that yes, racism exists, but it's not existing in the way in which it's normally being communicated to you from the mainstream media. racism is a systematic way of thinking. It's a systematic way of thinking. And again, you're going to hear me repeat this over and over and over and over today. If you don't recognize when you're being moved into the system, then you will just become a part of the system, and it's going to start to get into your own type of thinking. It's going to start to bleed into your own subconscious mind to the point where you're not even realizing, hey, wait, I'm committing myself to the very problem that's making it harder and harder for people that look like me because of the system that I have subscribed to without realizing I'm a part of this. That's why it's so important that you do your own homework and you do your own research and you make sure you're teaching your young people the foundational things that it takes to survive. And it means removing it starts, we'll say it like this, it starts with removing any sense of victim mentality. And I'll give you an example. I'll give you actual recent example. What actually sparked this episode? I'll be 100% honest with you. What actually sparked this episode, because it happened to me 2 weeks ago, and I was thinking to myself, man, how am I going to tell this story? How am I going to tell this story? Because there's so many things that sparked up when it actually happened for me, that I was moved. So I live in South Florida. I live in Florida, and believe it or not, there are times, especially this time of year, where there's Florida cold. I call it Florida cold. All right. There's some mornings where there's some chilly weather. We'll call it some chilly weather, where it's a little colder than normal. Again, me being a guy that's from up north, I don't personally, I don't subscribe to the whole cold thing because I grew up north. But the other 2 weeks ago, there was some colder weather out here in Florida, right? So what happens whenever there's cold weather out here in Florida, at times the tire air pressure, it goes down. And because I drive at the time, at least this was before I got my Camry. I got a Camry last week. So the week before last, I still was driving my Corolla, and the air tire light came on. And that's been happening lately, actually, even when it wasn't cold. So what happened was the air tire pressure light came on, and I drove over to the gas station that was right next to the gym, because it was as I was leaving the gym. And the gas station, the air tire pump, there was two of them. All right. So I go to one of them to just put some air in the car, and, usually that's how it works, because that's just the way the Toyotas work, is they make sure that if it's a little bit, the light's going to come on. Right. So I go to the air tire pump at the gas station, and I get out the car, and I realize, man, damn, I don't got no cash on me. Right. So some of them actually, they can take debit card. And I realized that this one didn't have a situation where they took debit cards, and I actually had to get some cash. So I'm like, damn, I'm out of luck because I had no cash on me. Nowadays, I don't really walk around with cash like that. So there were two air tire pressure pumps for people to use. There was one, let's say it was right here, and then there's one a little further down that was already being occupied, and it happened to be being occupied by a white guy. And this was why the story touched my heart in so many ways, because when you look at the way racism is typically taught, when you see this white guy, if I can describe him to you, he was the stereotypical white guy that you would think is a racist. Right? He's driving up, and this is the bullish. All right, I'm working on my swearing, but this is the bullish that too often do you feed your kids. Too often do you poison your kids with these stereotypes and with this nonsense that you put in their brain. Well, okay, that white person is racist because they look like this. Okay, so the guy who's driving the pickup truck, who's also at the other pump, right, putting air in his tire, he's white guy, tatted up, pickup truck, hat is backwards, and looks like the typical person that you would call, he don't like black people. So I walk over to him. I say, hey, bro, do you know if, and I don't ask him for money or anything like that. I just go and ask him, hey, bro, do you know if this one takes card? I just asked him that because when he's done, I'm just going to drive in and, put my card in and, get the air or whatever. And he's like, I don't even know, whatever. And I'm like, and then he asked me, he goes, oh, why, that one doesn't take card? And I'm like, nah, bro, don't take card, but I'll wait for you to be done and then I'll move up, because I actually think the one he did use the take card. So I was just gonna wait for him to be done and I was gonna move up. And then he goes, oh no, I think I got 4 quarters. I think I got, I got $1 to loan you in 4 quarters or whatever. And then he goes in his car, folks. All right, he goes in his car. He stops what he's doing. This is the guy in the middle, just like me in the morning. He's rushing, he's doing whatever. He goes in his car. All right, he finds 4 quarters and hands me, a black guy, hands me for a total stranger 4 quarters. I give my $1. I go back to the pump and put it in, and I get the air in my tire. A white guy did that. Total stranger. Didn't ask for anything in return. Didn't ask for nothing. And you're going to sit here and tell me that because he looked the way he looked, or the stereotypical BS that you guys put out there, that, oh, I can't trust other white people? That's bullshit. It's bullshit. It is. It's just ridiculous that we have continued to feed this narrative that every single person out there that doesn't look like you is a racist. And that's too often what these race hustlers want you to believe, because they avoid interactions like the one that I just described. That leads to actual accountability. That leads to you no longer being victim. That leads to you getting out of your comfort zone, right? That leads to me, when I think about everything I actually had to do for that interaction. First of all, I got to go and approach a total stranger. That develop, those soft people skills that everybody needs to survive. And, if you're in a gym, you got to, go introduce yourself to somebody. Or if you're starting a business, you got to go talk to strangers. You have to actually step out of your comfort zone and speak to someone that you may not know, or whatever it is. I had to do all those things. And then I was able to, again, get rewarded. Luckily or fortunately, he had 4 quarters that he didn't have a problem lending me, and moved on from the situation. I got the air in my tire. And I remember as he pulled off, he just, waved his hand and wished me luck and all that. Nothing in return. Just like that. Yet if you subscribe to the nonsense that they put on TV, if you subscribe to that bullshit, then the interaction never happens. That's it. And, if you want to ask me how I got that way, if you want to ask me where I had this, where I was able to develop this mindset to, you shouldn't be scared to talk to anybody. You shouldn't be afraid. I don't care what color, I don't care where they come from. I don't care what race, religion, creed they are. None of that. You need to open up your mouth. It's right here. These two right here. Let me move the thing so you see my dad's face. It's my mother and my father. The two people you see on that screen, Deborah and Neil Cruikshank. Those were the 2 people who instilled in me. This was stuff I learned in the home. I learned this in the home. Both of them, in their own way, in their own right, in their own way, in their own unique way of doing things, taught their son, you are not a victim. You are not a victim. All right. Let me give you a couple examples here, right? This was, and there'd be times, again, we grew up in Silver Spring, Maryland. We grew up in like the suburbs. It's kind of the outskirts of Washington, like the suburb part of Washington, D.C. It's like right on the outskirts of it. So, we're basically driving distance from D.C. and about 30 minutes from Baltimore. So a very, I hate to call it very affluent, because it wasn't very affluent, but it was affluent compared to where my mother and father have come from. So I always say that, hey, they were rich compared to where they actually came from. All right. So that's how I like to describe where I grew up. So yes, it was an affluent area, but the mindset that my mother and father took towards raising and building that home, building the mindset, or building the culture of the home. This is why I'm so big on culture and why I'm so huge. And I get so annoyed when you're in a work environment and they don't create culture. They don't create cohesiveness. They don't create things that are going to be conducive to development. This is why I get so frustrated when those kinds of things don't happen, because I grew up in an environment where the home, the culture life was very much about leaving the victimhood mentality out here. operate like that in the Crookshank household. That was the tone that my father set from day one, but not just my father, between my father and my mother. They set the tone of we don't operate in the victim mentality, right? So they had a time before, and this was around the time I was looking at colleges. All right. Now, this was actually a big deal for me because the high school that I went to, Good Counsel High School, was known for producing a lot of, that brought in a lot of college attention. Like, you went to Good Counsel High School with the expectation that you're going to college. You know, it wasn't like your typical public school or a school out there where the kids are just happy to graduate. Good Counsel High School was like, you're graduating and then you're going on to college. that was the expectation going to Good Counsel. All right. And I went there based on, you know, the football connections and having the football connections. But even that, when you play football at Good Counsel, the expectation is that you're going to play college football or you're going to college in some sort of way. That just was the expectation at the school that I attended. Right. So what happened was, I remember we were getting to be around that. It was getting to be around that time in which I was thinking about schools. I was thinking about colleges, and, you know, some of the typical high school things that I was a very impressionable kid in high school and all that, things that I was saying to my dad. I remember actually taking a walk with him, and I don't know why we were walking. We were walking somewhere. Normally, I didn't take walks with him. This is why it sticks out so much. See, me and my mother, we would go on hikes and walks and all that to so many different times. But me and my father, we wouldn't go on as many walks. Normally, our deep conversations would be through, you know, practice, or him dropping me off to school or dropping me off to practice, and me and my mother would do the walks. But there was a time in which me and my father had a walk, and, you know, he's run his own business for years. I mean, incredibly intelligent guy. Sometimes I'm sure he looks at me and says, man, I'm not sure if I'm actually his, because he loves math. Like, he loves math. He's run his own architectural company for years, and I can't stand math. Like, me and math, anything that I do with math, I don't touch that. I don't touch that at all. I don't touch that at all. So I remember we were having a conversation about, you know, going to college and, you know, where I needed to be going. And, you know, he threw out some like Ivy League stuff, or, you know, he threw out, you know, some really substantial schools or well-known schools or whatever it is. And I was expressing to him how intimidating that may have sounded, or, you know, because of the school I went to and because of all the things I was learning at Good Counsel, you know, certain schools are just hard to get into. If I was to get into this school, how can I keep up with the work? I was basically giving him that runaround, and he shut the shit down, man. He shut it down. He shut it down. He shut that down so quick. Let me tell you. He gave me his story because he graduated from Catholic University, and he remembers being told a lot of that same rhetoric when he was my age at the time. And then he tells me, look, I went to this school, I did this, I learned this, I did that, and look at me now. I was able to, you know, establish a family, you know, build a business, do all these things. And then he ended his story by basically saying, man, look, don't let anybody intimidate you with their diplomas and their degrees and their certifications or whatever it is they want to throw out to make themselves feel or look a little more smart than they actually are. Don't ever let anybody intimidate you with that. Now, that conversation stuck. It stuck. Clearly, it stuck. All right. I'm going to close you out with this story, because had it not been for that mentality that was instilled in me just through that conversation, I would have never actually graduated from Stony Brook. Well, that might be a little bit of a stretch, but I'll say I was able to graduate in 4 years because of the mentality. There was no way I wasn't going to graduate, having those parents, right? But I'll say I was able to graduate in 4 years because of the mentality and because of pieces of that story that he told me. All right, I'll give you an example. So the first 3 years of college, I was on 3 different campuses. I started at Carson Newman College. I was in Tennessee, and I took a bunch of different credits and a bunch of different courses that obviously stay with you when it comes to college. So the way college works is wherever you're registered at a certain school, you'll be registered there for life, and you could always enroll in classes no matter how old you get. That's how college works, right? So registered at Carson Newman College. Next year, I went to Montgomery College, which is a community college. And then my third year, I was at my dream school, which is Stony Brook University, which I wrote a book about. It's right here. I was at my dream school, right? For my final 2 years of college, right? So when it came time to for my junior year, and I was loaded with credits because I was taking credits every single year I was doing things. I was at least active in the game. I'm loaded with credits, and I'm at a brand new school, and I'm a part of this football program now, which is a Division I program. And, the taxing on the time, the amount of time for practice and meetings and everything we had to be a part of on the football team, I had to figure out how I was going to pick a major and play football at the same time. All right. So with all these credits all over the place, like here's most of the time, especially if you play this is or play college football, period. What you normally have to do is you would basically go online, look at the roster of the players and see what everybody else is majoring in, and you say to yourself, okay, those are the options, because everything else that you wanted to do, whether you want to be a business major. I remember going to Stony Brook wanting to be a business major and wanting to actually do some athletic training and all that, but the time to do those and play football, it just was like, you just wasn't going to be able to do it and play football. So you just had to make that decision. And me personally, I was going to play football. So, me not playing football wasn't even a part of the discussion. So anyway, I say all that because they immediately put me into a sociology major. All right. And with sociology was good, but I had taken so many different credits and different classes at other schools that I was able to switch from sociology to something that's called multidisciplinary studies. All right, MTD. And multidisciplinary studies is you pick 3 disciplines and you take enough credits, and that allows you to create one major. All right. So my 3 disciplines were history, philosophy, and sociology because of the classes that I had taken previously before I got to Stony Brook, right? So what happened was most of my sociology classes was with shout out to Miss Professor Marone, all right, Catherine Marone, who I still, I could still reach out to this day, and I will always appreciate for a lifetime, because she taught not only was she a sociology teacher, but she also was like a department head for the multidisciplinary studies major as well. So what happened was I was taking one of her sociology classes because it was highly recommended. She was a very popular lady. She was a white lady too, by the way. The fact that she's a white lady is very important in this story. She was a white lady, and she with a lot of the people who taken her class before spoke very highly of her. A lot of people, oh man, you're gonna love Marone's class. I mean, people that weren't football players. I spoke to the regular students and the people on the team and other athletes and all that. Professor Marone is her. She's her. She just does a great job with the classes. So I would sit in on the lectures, right? I would sit in on every lecture. I would never skip class. I was not the kind of guy that was skipping classes. Again, if you were to meet my father and my mother, you would know. Even though I'm in New York and they're in Maryland, you would know skipping classes was a really bad idea when I had the 2 parents that I had. Even though they were nowhere, like they weren't on the college campus mentally, if I'm skipping classes, knowing the sacrifices that they made to get me here, and I'm skipping classes, man, I wouldn't have been able to even enjoy the day if I was skipping classes, because mentally I would know the way my mother and father are, that like, mofo, look, I would feel like they're actually there in New York ready to bust my ass, knowing the sacrifices that they made to get me to school, and I'm skipping classes. So anyway, I say that because I wasn't skipping any of the classes, and I was in these sociology classes with Marone, and I'm paying attention. I'm just tuned in because the subject matter actually is something I'm very interested in. The subject matter of sociology and the culture and how people think and how people are living. That's what we were studying in certain, aspects of it and all that. So I was in class and being very attentive and being very interested in what was going on. However, the test was always multiple choice. The test was always multiple choice, and I would fail it. I would fail the test every single time that was multiple choice. So I remember failing it one time and going to her, and she, a white lady, just like the guy I was telling you about before, the with the tire stuff, that gave me $1 at the tire shop. She, a white lady, offers me an opportunity to take an essay-based exam. And I ended up graduating because of that. It was those classes that I needed to graduate. She offers me an opportunity to take an essay-based exam, and I end up acing all of the essay-based exams. Did she have to do that? No, she didn't have to do that. And would she have done that had I not been showing up to class every single day? The answer is hell no. That had nothing to do with my skin color. Had nothing to do with the fact that the black lady gave me a break, or the white lady. No, none of that. It was the fact that I was showing up to class every day, and she knew he knew the material. So let me give him an opportunity, because I know if I give him the test in this fashion, he's gonna nail it and ace it. That's what teaching's all about. That's what being accountable is all about. That's what having some actual integrity and some character and some and an ability to say, these are the things I want in my life. You being black have nothing to do with that, or white, or Hispanic, or whatever stereotypical bullshit that you guys like to throw out there. Actually having the work ethic, having the structure in home, and deciding that this is what you're going to do with your life, conditioning your mind to go out and get it, that's what gets you ahead. I'm living proof example of it. So all the nonsense that we see online, and we see a lot of it, a lot of the Black Lives, all the stuff that they put out there to keep your kids, your people down, you have to get in the ear of these young people and remove that mentality as quick as possible, because you are losing. You're losing because there's somebody else out there who's out there removing and maybe they are victims. Maybe there's a circumstance, or there's a situation in which they're part of that's not favorable to them. Maybe that is happening. They're not thinking about that. They're going about it every day as if they're not a victim, and they're just seeing what happens, and they're getting ahead of whoever is allowing the victim mentality to creep into their mind and make that to be the excuse for them not putting in the work. It's up to us to remove that mentality. Again, I'm living proof example of it. Whether it was the guy that gives me the $1 for to put air in my tire, or it's me not skipping class, showing up to class every single day because I was interested in the topic. She gives me the opportunity, folks. I didn't ask for it. I was actually going to go talk to her about maybe Paul was going to try to, work it in, because she's a female professor and this is college. So I'm like, yo, maybe I could work it in. I don't know what her situation is. Maybe she can give me a retest. Maybe I could sweet talk or whatever. And she, before I even get to that, she says, hey, you want to take an essay-based exam? And she offered that to me because as she's teaching the same way as I'm teaching now, I'm seeing the students who are actually paying attention. This is the same way she was with me. I'm seeing who's actually attentive. I'm seeing who's not wasting my time. I'm seeing who I'm giving information to, and they're going and applying it, and they're getting better every day. This is why I was telling you earlier, look, the kids I'm working with primarily, I knew them when they were in second grade. And you see the growth and development in some of them. You see where in the home, okay, that's someone who's about to take these lessons, take the things that I'm showing them every day, and they about to go take over the world, B. And that's what you can do as everybody's a teacher. You don't have to have a certification. You don't have to have a title. You don't have to go to school to be a teacher. Every single person is a teacher in some way, shape, form, or fashion. It just is a matter of you taking the responsibility. You taking the responsibility to provide at the home and to explain in the home, these are the foundational pieces. And I'll just close you out with this. I'll close you out with this concept, all right? Because it was actually when I was these kids' age that my older sister approached me. She approached me in the middle of nowhere, bro. And yeah, I could bring on my sister right now, and she will confirm this story. She blindsided me when I was in elementary school and told me about racism, taught me about slavery. I swear to God, on the Bible, to this day, to the point where it affects me to this day. I can tell you the spot, I can tell you the room, I can tell you the time of day, I can tell you exactly what happened about how I learned about slavery. It was my sister, who was 5 years older than me, came to me while I'm in elementary school, and she tells me all about slavery, completely just snatching the innocence from me, to the point where when I learned about it in school, and this is a girl who's only was a teenager when she told me about this, the teachers didn't even compare, because she gave it to me from the raw, uncut truth. And this is how it worked, and this is the way it looked, and this is the way I'm not even sure if now that I'm thinking about it, I'm sure my mother and father kind of mentioned it to her or brought it up to her. But at the end of the day, she didn't have to do that. She did it, and she did it. And this is what became of it, is that I now know how to use my own mind. I know how to use my own discernment. I know how to think for myself, think logically, and I understand when someone's giving you some bullshit or someone's giving you some real shit, to be 100% honest with you. When someone's giving you some bullshit, they're just throwing out your skin color and they're trying to pull you into their victim mentality so they have an excuse or they have some misery. Understand, misery loves company regardless of your ethnicity. Ooh. Let me take a drink of water on that. And I want to make sure that one stings. I'm going to say it again. Misery loves company regardless of the ethnicity. So regardless of whatever the ethnicity is, if they're miserable, they love to pull you in to their misery because it's company for them. However, you have to use your own discernment, use your own mindset, use your own ability to think, to say, I'm not going down that road. I want to be great. I want to be challenged. I want to be pushed. I want to condition my mind to do some incredible things. And I'm not going to get there if I'm just standing in a comfort zone. And every time I look up, I'm blaming somebody else for my problems and my shit. I got to start to look within to see how I can improve my own situation. All right. And that's all I have to say today. So I'll have more on this. Believe it or not, I do have a whole lot more on this because we see it play out every single day. So Friday, I'll be breaking more of this down as we get into the college football playoffs and as the NFL playoffs are starting to take form and all that. If anything, make sure you tap in with me. Here it is. Make sure you tap in with me on the Patreon link. It's let me get the link up for you guys. Patreon.com/Aswand44. Everyone out there, Aswand Crookshank, your one and only Move Swiftly speaker, checking out. You guys continue to move swiftly. We will talk more.